Picture the American wilderness in the early 19th century. Vast, dense forests stretch as far as the eye can see. Mighty rivers wind through the land. Towering mountains stand like silent guardians. Muddy trails carved by wagon wheels disappear into the horizon. People struggle to move heavy loads of goods. Horses pull carts slowly through mud and over rough ground. Journeys that we take for granted today took weeks or even months. Then, something revolutionary appears. Tiny iron rails gleam in the sunlight. The birth of the first railroad in America has begun. This is the story of how brave workers built the very first iron road across the young nation. In the 1820s and 1830s, America was growing at an astonishing rate. Cities were expanding. Farms were producing more than ever. Factories were beginning to rise. But the nation faced a serious problem. Transportation was painfully slow and expensive. Dirt roads turned to mud in the rain. Rivers and canals froze in winter. Moving people and goods across the growing country was a constant struggle. Visionary leaders understood that a new form of transportation was needed. Something faster, cheaper, and more reliable. Their answer was the iron rail. One of the pioneering projects was the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, often called the B&O. Chartered in 1827, it became one of the first common carrier railroads in the United States. Bold businessmen and engineers believed that a railroad could connect Baltimore to the Ohio River and open the West. They dared to dream big. The work began with careful surveying. Teams of surveyors walked hundreds of miles through untouched wilderness. They pushed through thick forests, crossed swamps filled with mosquitoes, climbed steep hills, and forded rivers. They faced wild animals, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of illness. Their job was to find the gentlest grades and the most practical route. Every decision they made would affect the cost and success of the entire project. Once the route was chosen, the real labor began. Thousands of workers arrived. Many were recent immigrants from Ireland. Others were freed black workers and local men looking for honest pay. They came with nothing but hand tools and incredible determination. Their first task was clearing the right-of-way. Dense forests stood in their path. Using only axes, saws, and controlled fires, they cut down massive trees. The sound of chopping echoed for miles. Stumps were dug out by hand or pulled by teams of horses. The cleared land became a long scar through the wilderness. Next came the grading. Workers had to create a level roadbed. They dug deep cuts through hillsides using picks and shovels. Black powder explosions shook the earth as they blasted through rock. In low areas, they built enormous embankments, moving mountains of dirt with wheelbarrows and horse-drawn carts. Every cubic yard of earth was moved by human muscle and sweat. Building strong roadbeds was critical. The ground had to support the weight of future trains without sinking or shifting. Layers of stone ballast were laid to provide drainage and stability. Wooden ties were placed at precise intervals to hold the rails. Crossing rivers and ravines required special skill. Workers constructed wooden trestles and bridges. Tall timber frameworks rose high above the water. These structures had to be strong enough to carry the weight of locomotives and cars while resisting floods and wind. The rails themselves were heavy iron bars. In the earliest days, they were fastened to stone blocks or wooden ties with spikes driven by heavy hammers. Teams of men worked in rhythm, their hammers striking in unison. The sound became the heartbeat of the project. Precision was everything. The rails had to be perfectly level and aligned. Even small mistakes could cause derailments. Early switches and turnouts were handmade. Simple stations began appearing along the line. The workers lived in rough camps near the construction. They woke before dawn and labored until dark. They cooked meals over open fires. They slept in tents or crude cabins. Danger was constant. Earth could collapse without warning. Explosions sometimes went wrong. Falling trees and disease claimed many lives. Yet they continued day after day because they understood they were building something that would change the nation forever. Early locomotives added another layer of wonder. The first American steam engines were often imported from England or built locally with great difficulty. One famous moment was the race between the Tom Thumb locomotive and a horse-drawn carriage. The little steam engine showed the world the future of transportation, even if the horse won that particular race due to a mechanical issue. In the beginning, some sections even used horses to pull cars along the rails before reliable steam power was available. The transition from wooden rails to stronger iron and eventually steel marked steady progress. Construction proceeded step by step. After surveying came clearing. After clearing came grading. Bridges and culverts were built to handle water crossings. Ballast and ties were laid. Iron rails were placed and secured. Finally, the first experimental trains rolled slowly along the new track, testing every section. Imagine the moment the first train moved under its own power. Smoke rose from the stack. Wheels turned on iron rails. Workers stood watching with pride as their creation came to life. The impact of these first railroads was revolutionary. They connected isolated communities. Travel time between cities dropped dramatically. Trade exploded. New industries grew around the rails. The railroads helped open the American West and bound the East Coast together. They became the backbone of industrial growth and westward expansion. These forgotten builders had almost nothing by today's standards. No bulldozers, no diesel engines, no computers or laser surveying tools. They worked with hand tools, basic explosives, horses, and their own strength. Many paid the ultimate price so that future generations could travel quickly and safely across the continent. From those humble first miles of iron rail grew the vast American railroad network, a network that would help make the United States an industrial powerhouse and connect a vast nation. The next time you see railroad tracks stretching across the land, remember the men who built the very first ones. Remember their sweat, their courage, and their vision. Their labor still carries America forward today. Thank you for watching this chapter in the story of forgotten American labor. If you respect the hands that built our nation, subscribe and join us for more stories of the men who shaped America through sheer determination and hard work. The Iron Road began with courage, and it continues to carry us all these years later.